r/AskReddit. NSFW. What is the best NSFW historical fact you know? The ancient city of Alexandria had one of the most famous red light districts, brothels, in the world. Once the prostitutes went on a strike and the economy of the city was at risk. So Cleopatra consulted one of the wise men in the library. And he suggested that they build another district as a competitor. Then they had two districts and the prostitutes of the first district had to end their strike. Oh wise man. The wenches aren't working, and we're in financial ruin. Whatever shall we do? Smash his screaming bowl on the floor. More duck-eyeing whores. If only they narrated history like that. Saint Lawrence was martyred on a gridiron. His last words were, "I'm well done on this side. Turn me over." He's now the patron saint of cooks and comedians. I'm not making any of this up. Goddamn, that is legendary. Literally. William the Conqueror allegedly smashed his testicles on the pommel of his horse's saddle, which eventually killed him. But that's not the end of it. During his funeral ceremony, they had placed him in a stone coffin/sarcophagus thing. It was unusually hot that day and his body swelled. Well, the coffin did not. So during his funeral, where he died by smashing his nuts, his body exploded. That poor tyrant just couldn't be put into the ground fast enough at the time. Funerals and burials were usually arranged by people who loved the deceased. Unfortunately for the recently dead William, he wasn't too liked. He died campaigning against his own son and nobody really wanted to put on his funeral. And so his dead and disgustingly fat body laid naked in a medical facility in Rouen for some time until some random knight took it upon himself to conduct the funeral. Little did the knight know when he took the task, but William was to be buried in Keene, which is about 70 miles away. So the knight decided to try to embalm the king himself, though I'm sure he winged most of it and found that most of his flesh and intestines were ripe with decomposition. The brave and iron-stomached knight then filled his body as much as he could with herbs and stuff, and went about the leisurely boat ride down the Seine with a dead and bloated king. It gets worse. By the time they got to Keene, the intestines started to liquefy and filled the abdomen with putrid gas, and so a second embalming took place. And then a fire broke out in the city, stopping the funeral for a few days as he continued to stink and decompose even further. At this time his body was swelling more each day as the flames were put out around the city and the monks could attend the burial. Finally, it was funeral time. Right? Wrong. A legal dispute broke out over whether the church was built on the land of a local farmer. Bring in the 11th century lawyers. Fortunately, it was only about a week before they had decided that the church was legally built on the land and that William could be buried there. Good news for all. The bloated and liquefying body of William the Conqueror was finally getting a funeral. The monks started pushing him into his sarcophagus, and then they were about to put him into the ground. But wait. There's more. The gravitigas didn't make the hole big enough. Suspending the funeral to widen the hole would take a whole day. But it was a combination of the residual heat from the recent fires and the putrid stench coming from the body of William the Conqueror's body forced the monks, gravitigas, lawyers, iron-stomached knight and a few nobles to take a calculated decision. Dig a wider hole or stuff the bastard, because he was called William the Bastard before Conqueror. Get it? Into the hole. They shoved. He exploded. His guts, liquefied intestines and organs, blood, hit, grey matter and visceral fats shot over and covered everybody brave enough to call themselves attendants to the funeral of William of Normandy. Some say that this is no way to treat a dead body, even by 11th century standards. Some say that he was a tyrant and treated everybody like shit, and so the honor and dignity of a respectful funeral isn't needed here. However, I say, albeit I'm just some dude on Reddit, that this was one final duck you to anybody around him. I think that on some level, William would have wanted to explode over everybody like that. Because he was a cruel and spiteful person who generally regarded people as beneath him. Good on him. He treated people in death exactly as he did in life, a burden who will ruin your day, no matter how much you tried to help. Edit. I'm fully prepared for the pro-am historians to peck holes into this stream of consciousness here. I'm too drunk to taste this chicken. This is the story that got me into European history. My history teacher was a miserable person. but she knew exactly what to do to get certain kids interested. Roman Emperor Commodus had an harem of 300 women and men, and spent most of his time there. If you had a harem that size, you'd do the same. Trust me, you'd find spot to hide away from the harem after 2 years. The first vibrating toy was diesel powered. BRRRTTRRTTRTTRTT. What's that noise? Oh. That. Nothing. Just my wife's treatment for hysteria. Is she ducking an A10? Belarus WWII, a high-ranking Nazi officer, had a brothel/concubine set up. Obviously. Not consensual. Well, some of the ladies didn't like the situation. And didn't like Nazis. So they put a landmine under his mattress. I call it the Belarusian space program. Still safer as a space program than my death-trap machines I make in KSP. Who needs symmetry when you can have even more acceleration? Not so much as historically as biblical. According to the Bible, right when Jesus is getting arrested by the Romans, a random unnamed naked guy just runs past everyone. He is never mentioned again, and it is unknown why they even put in the Bible. It's Mark 14:51-52 if you want to check it out. He's probably going to be a key character in the second coming. It's one of those Chekhov's guns things. So the commie guy was actually onto something. Mathematician Kurt Gödel suffered from mental illness and was paranoid he was going to be poisoned. He would only eat food his wife had prepared for him. In 1977, she was hospitalized for 6 months and could no longer prepare his food. In her absence, he refused to eat and eventually starved to death. He only weighed 65 pounds when he died. He couldn't have made himself a goddamn sandwich? You fool. What if he poisoned his food? In ancient Greece, prostitutes used to press "follow me" into their sandals so that when they walked it would imprint into the dirt or sand. So when people saw it, they'd know that they could follow the trail and it would end in a prostitute and maybe some ex. There's a sculpture I love called the Slipper Slapper that shows Aphrodite and Pan. And she is, edit, my bad, this is not true, holding a sandal with "follow me" on the bottom. Big edit, sorry. I appear to have misunderstood a professor and then didn't follow up before posting. The Slipper Slapper is a beautiful sculpture, but does not have "follow me" studded on the bottom in Greek. My bad for not researching the statue more before posting. Ancient duck me shoes. When the nice shoes wanna duck pickup line actually worked. American is a replacement wig for pubic hairs prostitutes used to use after they shaved this due to pubic lice. Merkins are regularly used in cinema. For some reason it's more acceptable to show fake pubic hair than the real deal. Probably the actress does not want to go full frontal. I thought it was for historical accuracy, as women today tend to shave more than in the past. George Washington, in his youth, was a handsome, strapping young man that all the women and officers' wives wanted to screw. Our founding father was a bit of a poon hound. I heard he had like 30 goddamn peens. Had a pocket full of horses. 18th century Empress of Russia Catherine the Great employed foot ticklers to turn her on. Her furniture had actual peens on it. Carved furniture peens. A lady I can respect. For that if nothing else. Define actual. The one about Gandhi regularly group bathing. Group sleeping/cuddling. And getting strip teases and lap dances from really young women. One of which was his grand, or great-grand, I can't recall, niece, to test his exhale restraint, or whatever. Lol. Gandhi was a huge unt. That's why he nooks everybody. In the war for Texas independence against Mexico, after the Battle of the Alamo, there was this Mexican woman who was a spy for Texas. Nicknamed the Yellow Rose of Texas, she went and seduced the Mexican General Santa Anna. And while they were hooking up, the Texans did a surprise attack and slaughtered many Mexicans and won the war. Probably got some facts wrong, lol. WTF. They didn't teach me this in 4th grade Texas history. I was told that he was just sleeping. I was told that he was just sleeping. Yeet. With some whore. Hitler had the hots for his niece Jelly Rorbel, 17, 23 years old, who was found dead in her bedroom after she shot herself in the chest with his own gun. Noting the fact that she lived with him until 1931. There are a lot of controversial aspects to that story, but also a lot of interesting pieces of information. Some historians speculate that they had a bizarre relationship and that probably she was the love of his life. He mourned her death for a week locked in her bedroom, denied food and wanted to kill himself. After that he kept her room as a shrine and kept her memories with him until near his death. So weird when banging your underage niece isn't the worst things you did in life. TBH, I'm starting to think this Hitler guy might not be so great. In 2017, Oscar Wilde was among an estimated 50,000 men who were pardoned for homosexual acts that were no longer considered offenses under the Policing and Crime Act 2017. The act is known informally as the Alan Turing Law. Not that it matters to Mr. Wilde now, but 130 years is a long time to wait to have your name cleared. To which Mr. Wilde probably would have blithely quipped, better to have been infamous than not. Ottoman Padishah Selim II died by stepping on a soap and falling while chasing girls in his harem. At least his last memory was looking at bodacious bouncing buttocks and bouncy bombastic breasts. After Nero, how can you have a NSFW history thread without naming him, kicked his wife to death. He met a young boy named Sporus. According to some, Sporus held somewhat of a resemblance to Nero's late, killed, wife, Poppaea. And so Nero had the boy castrated and married him. During the marriage, they appeared in public as a happy couple as Nero paraded his new bride around to Greece and then back to Rome where he had married another guy named Pythagoras, not the maths guy. Nero called Pythagoras his husband and called Sporus his wife. Sporus was labeled the Empress. A lot of people think that Nero took to Sporus because of the guilt he felt for kicking his wife to death, as he even called Sporus Poppaea, the wife he kicked to death. Needless to say, Nero had issues and is classic in NSFW history. He ran the gamut of MFK with his mom, killed his wife, castrated boys who looked like his dead, murdered wife and kept them around for his pleasure/guilt. Married strong dudes, not that there's anything wrong with that, and ended up killing himself. I'm positive a lot of his history is propaganda, and I recognize how mental illness still goes diagnosed in today's world. Not to mention the ancient world. Also, trying to look through the anti-Nero and revisions to find the truth is supremely challenging, but damn, that hit is ducked. Most likely, he didn't kick her to death. That was a rumor started by the patrician class who despised him. She most likely died from complications of miscarriage. The lower class folks loved him. Most likely. Hard to separate what is truth and what are rumors that became the history with any person, let alone an extreme situation like Nero. Don't know if it's true, but my history teacher told me about this one prostitute that got out of dying or something by showing the judges her boobs, claiming it would be against gods to destroy something so beautiful. According to the story I heard, that was in ancient Greece, which believed beauty was an indicator of virtue. Thus, her defense rested on being so beautiful she was obviously too virtuous to commit the crime. Edit, fixed spelling. If I remember correctly, she was on trial for blasphemy or something akin. Fath Ali Shah Qajar, second king in Qajar dynasty in Iran, about 200 years ago, had 160 wives. Nasiruddin Shah Qajar had about 50. In Islam, you're not allowed to marry more than 4 wives at the same time. It is said that Nasiruddin Shah was once walking in his palace and saw a beautiful girl and asked if he could marry her. Everyone was looking at him weirdly, and he asked why. One of his servants said that she was his daughter. But did he marry her? Gladly no. I can't bear the fact that he had so many wives. Don't want to add incest to it. Ducking like and subscribe.